I always thought the moment your life falls apart would be dramatic. Maybe a screaming match or plates shattering against walls. Instead, it happened on an ordinary Tuesday evening while I was chopping vegetables for dinner. "I sold the house," Dorian said casually, as if he was commenting on the weather. The knife in my hand stilled over the half-sliced cucumber. "You what?" "The house, Kira. I sold it." He loosened his tie and poured himself a whiskey, not meeting my eyes. "We close in 30 days. The kitchen, my kitchen with its hand-painted tiles and the window herb garden I'd cultivated for 5 years, suddenly felt like it was closing in on me. "You can't sell our house without my signature," I said, my voice surprisingly steady despite the trembling in my hands. Susan's office smelled like coffee and determination at midnight. We'd been going through documents for hours, spreading papers across her mahogany desk like a crime scene investigation. "Look at this," Susan said, holding up a document. "The business registration for his new venture. He's listed Amber as co-owner, but the funding—" She frowned, tapping her pen against her chin. "The funding's coming from multiple sources, including your house. Our house," I corrected bitterly, reaching for my third cup of coffee. "Not according to these papers." She slid a document across the desk. "He's been planning this for months, Kira. The ownership transfer, the business setup, everything. But there's something odd about the investor structure." My phone buzzed. Another message from Dorian. "Come home. We can talk about this like adults." I switched my phone off. "What's odd about it?" I asked, leaning forward. "He's promising returns that don't add up. Look at these projections." Susan pulled up a spreadsheet on her laptop. "He's telling investors one thing, but the actual business model can't possibly generate these numbers. This isn't just betrayal, Kira. This is fraud." A knock at the door made us both jump. Prince, Susan's tech expert, walked in with his laptop. "Ladies, you're going to want to see this," he said, setting up his computer. I did some digging into Dorian's emails, totally legal, of course. He winked at Susan. "Found something interesting. He's been corresponding with a guy named Martin Young, big-time investor, known for backing tech startups." Prince turned his laptop around, showing us a chain of emails. My stomach churned as I read through Dorian's promises to Martin. Guaranteed returns, proprietary technology, market dominance. "It's all smoke and mirrors," Prince said. "The technology he's promising doesn't exist. He's selling vapor." "How many investors are involved?" I asked. "At least 12, Susan replied, scanning the documents. "Combined investments totaling," she whistled, "over $8 million. And our house? The sale will add another million to his war chest." Susan's eyes met mine. "Kira, this isn't just about your marriage anymore. This is serious criminal fraud." I stood up, pacing the office. "We need to talk to Martin." "Already ahead of you," Prince said, typing rapidly. "He's having dinner at LeBlanc tomorrow night. Regular Thursday reservation." "How did you—" "Don't ask," Susan interrupted. "Prince has his ways." I stopped pacing. "I need to see Amber." "Bad idea," Susan warned. "Any direct contact could compromise." "She deserves to know," I said firmly. "He's using her name on these documents. If this falls apart, she'll go down with him." Susan leaned back in her chair, studying me. "This isn't about revenge anymore, is it?" "It never was," I replied quietly. "It's about justice. For everyone he's hurt." Prince cleared his throat. "I can get you Amber's address, but Kira, be careful. We don't know if she's involved or just another victim." "I'll know when I see her," I said. Years of foster care taught me one thing. You can always spot another survivor. Susan started gathering the documents. "Okay, here's what we do. Prince keeps monitoring the emails. I'll start building the legal framework. Kira, you talk to Amber, but be subtle. We need to understand the full scope of his operation before we move." "And Martin?" I asked. "Leave him to me." Susan smiled. "I happen to know the maitre d' at LeBlanc. Amazing what people will tell you over a good bottle of wine." As I gathered my things to leave, Susan grabbed my arm. Kira, wait. There's something else you should see. She handed me another email printout. My blood ran cold as I read it. Once the business launches, Dorian had written to his lawyer, we'll need to ensure Amber's cooperation is properly compensated. After that, we can proceed with the restructuring as discussed. He's planning to cut her out too, I whispered. Like I said, Susan replied grimly, this isn't just about your marriage anymore. He finally looked at me, a smirk playing at the corners of his mouth. Actually, I can. Remember that paperwork you signed last month? For the refinancing? The memory hit me like a punch to the gut. I'd trusted him. After 12 years of marriage, why wouldn't I? You tricked me into signing over the house? I needed the capital for my new business venture. He took another sip of whiskey. With Amber. Who's Amber? Walking to my car in the pre-dawn darkness, I felt a strange sense of clarity. Dorian hadn't just betrayed me. He'd built an entire house of cards on lies and manipulation. Now it was time to introduce a little wind into his perfectly constructed world. My phone buzzed again as I started the car. A text from an unknown number. Meet me at Riverside Park, 7 a.m. Come alone. Amber. I took a deep breath and typed back. I'll be there. The game was changing. And this time, I wasn't the only player with something to lose. Riverside Park was quiet at 7 a.m., the morning mist still clinging to the grass. I spotted her immediately. Tall, elegant, exactly the type of woman you'd expect Dorian to choose. She sat on a bench facing the water, 2 coffee cups beside her. I wasn't sure how you take it, Amber said as I approached. So I got both black and with cream. I took the black coffee. How did you get my number? Dorian's phone. He leaves it unlocked when he sleeps. She smiled without humor. Old habits die hard when you don't trust someone. I sat down, keeping space between us. Why did you want to meet? Because I found these. She pulled out a stack of papers from her bag. And because I have 2 children who don't deserve to pay for their father's crimes. The papers were bank statements, transfer records, and what looked like preliminary contracts. My hands shook as I read through them. He's been moving money between accounts, Amber explained. Using my name, my signature, I thought... She paused, composing herself. I thought he was protecting our future. Instead, he's been setting me up as his fall person. How long have you known? 3 days. I confronted him last night. She touched her wrist absently, and I noticed the slight discoloration of a forming bruise. He explained how things would work out for everyone if I just played along. My sister Lucille's voice suddenly came from behind us. That sounds like Dorian. I turned to see her walking toward us, her police badge visible on her belt. Amber stiffened. It's okay, I said quickly. She's my sister, and we need her. Lucille sat down, completing our strange triangle. Prince called me, said you might need some official oversight on this meeting. You brought a cop? Amber's voice shook. I brought someone who understands what we're dealing with. I corrected. Show her the transfer records. As Lucille reviewed the documents, her expression darkened. This is sophisticated fraud. He's been planning this for years. The business launch is in 2 weeks, Amber said. Once the investors transfer the final payments, she trailed off. He disappears with the money, I finished, leaving us to deal with the fallout. Lucille pulled out her phone. I'm calling Martin Young. He needs to... No, I interrupted. Not yet. We need more. What we need, Amber said, is access to his private server. That's where he keeps everything. The real business plans, the offshore account details, everything. Lucille raised an eyebrow. And how exactly do you know this? Because I set it up for him. Amber's face flushed. I work in IT security. He said it was to protect our family's privacy. My phone buzzed. A message from Prince. Got into his calendar. Business launch event details attached. Full investor list included. Can you get into the server? I asked Amber. She nodded slowly. Yes, but he'll know it was me. No. Lucille said, standing up. He'll think it was Kira, the scorned wife looking for revenge. It's what he's expecting anyway. Why are you helping me? I asked Amber. You could just take the kids and run. Because running means starting over with nothing. Again. She met my eyes. And because my daughter deserves to see that sometimes the bad guys don't win. My phone buzzed again. Susan this time. Martin's in. Meeting him for lunch. Bring everything you have. Okay, I said, standing up. Amber, get us that server access. Lucille, we need official eyes on those transfers. I'm meeting Martin in 3 hours. What about Dorian? Amber asked. Let him think he's winning. Lucille advised. Men like him always underestimate women they've hurt. It's their biggest weakness. As we prepared to leave, Amber grabbed my arm. Kira, wait. There's something else you should know. She pulled out one final document. He's been recording all his calls, including ones with the investors. It's all on the server. Every lie, every promise, every threat. His silence told me everything. The knife clattered onto the cutting board as realization dawned. How long? I whispered. 8 years. He had the audacity to look annoyed, as if my questions were an inconvenience. We have 2 kids together. The room spun. 8 years, 2 kids. Half our marriage had been a lie. You're taking our home to fund a life with them? I took the paper, a map of his digital archives. Why would he keep evidence of his own crimes? Because, Amber said bitterly, he likes to replay his victories, to remind himself how clever he is. Lucille snorted. Narcissists always keep trophies. As we walked back to our cars, the morning sun finally breaking through the mist, I felt the pieces falling into place. Dorian had spent years building his perfect trap, never realizing he was actually constructing his own cage. My phone buzzed one last time. Dorian, where are you? We need to discuss the house situation. I typed back. Don't worry, everything's going exactly according to plan. For once, I wasn't lying. LeBlanc's private dining room felt like a confessional booth, with Martin Young sitting across from me, his face growing darker with each document I slid across the white tablecloth. He loosened his tie. This can't be real. Every document is authenticated, Susan said, sitting beside me. The transfer records, the fake technology patents, the double books, it's all there. Martin pushed away his untouched salmon. $8 million, my investors' money, our money. He looked at me. And you say your house sale is funding the final phase? Along with 3 other properties he's acquired through similar means, I confirmed. He's been perfecting this scheme for years. Show him the server logs, Susan prompted. I pulled out my tablet, playing one of the recordings Amber had retrieved. Dorian's voice filled the room. Once we have the final investment round, we'll move everything offshore. The technology doesn't need to work. It just needs to look good enough for the launch. Martin's hand clenched around his water glass. That was last week, in my office. He records everything, I explained. Every meeting, every promise, every lie. We have hundreds of hours of evidence. Why are you showing me this? Martin asked. Why not go straight to the authorities? Susan leaned forward. Because you have influence with the other investors. We need them to play along until the launch event. You want to catch him in the act? Martin said slowly. Make it public. We want to make it impossible for him to wiggle out of this, I corrected. No legal loopholes, no second chances. My phone buzzed. A text from Prince. Emergency, call now. Excuse me, I said, stepping away from the table. I dialed Prince's number. Kira, Dorian's making moves, Prince said without preamble. He just booked a one-way flight to the Cayman Islands for the day after the launch. First class. Solo ticket. My heart raced. He's planning to run. That's not all. He's been transferring small amounts to an account in Amber's name, building a paper trail. Setting her up to take the fall, I whispered. When does the flight leave? 3 a.m., the night of the launch. I returned to the table where Martin was reviewing more documents with Susan. He's planning to run, I announced, the night of the launch. Martin's face hardened. Not with my investors' money, he's not. We need to move faster, Susan said. The launch is in 10 days. 8 days, Martin corrected. He moved it up, sent the invitations this morning. My phone buzzed again. Amber. He's here, at my house. He knows something's wrong. I have to go, I said, standing up. Martin, are you with us? He stood, straightening his tie. Miss Walker, I've spent 20 years building my reputation in this city. Dorian isn't just stealing money, he's stealing trust, dreams, futures. He extended his hand. I'm not just with you. I'm going to help you destroy him. I shook his hand and rushed out, calling Amber back as I ran to my car. Don't let him know you're scared, I said when she answered. Where are the kids? At school, she whispered. He's going through my laptop. Let him, I replied, starting the car. Prince already copied everything. Is your front door locked? Yes, but keep it locked. I'm 5 minutes away. Lucille is 3. I could hear Dorian's voice in the background growing louder. Who are you talking to? The line went dead. I pressed the accelerator, weaving through traffic. My phone rang. Susan. Martin's calling the other investors, she said. They're all in. Every single one wants to see him go down. They're my real family, Kira. His words cut deeper than any knife could. You were always second best, a backup plan. After what happened with your parents, you were so desperate for stability, so eager to believe in love. It made things convenient. My childhood flashed before my eyes. Foster homes, broken promises, the desperate need to belong somewhere. Dorian had known all of this. He'd used it against me. Get out, I said quietly. Good, because we just lost our timeline. I replied, running a red light. He's at Amber's house. He knows something's wrong. Don't do anything stupid, Kira. We need him free for the launch. I pulled up to Amber's house just as Lucille's police cruiser arrived. Through the window, I could see Dorian gesturing angrily, Amber backing away. No promises, I said, hanging up. Lucille reached the door first, knocking firmly. Police, open up! The door swung open, revealing Dorian's surprised face. Behind him, Amber clutched her wrist, tears streaming down her face. Is there a problem, officer? Dorian asked smoothly. Domestic disturbance call, Lucille replied. Mind if I come in? I stepped into view, meeting Dorian's eyes. His confident smile faltered for just a moment. Actually, I said, I think we all need to have a little chat about the future. The game was accelerating, pieces moving faster than planned. But as I watched Dorian's facade crack, I realized something important. Sometimes the best traps are the ones your target thinks they've already escaped. Amber's living room felt like a powder keg. Lucille stood by the door, one hand casually resting near her weapon. Dorian sat in an armchair, his usual smugness replaced by something darker. Amber and I shared the couch, a united front he clearly hadn't expected. So, Dorian said, breaking the silence. You two have met. How touching. We've done more than meet, I replied. We've been comparing notes. His eyes flickered to Amber's laptop on the coffee table. Have you? The server logs make for interesting reading, Amber said quietly. Especially the parts about my compensation package after the launch. Dorian's jaw tightened. Whatever you think you found, $8 million in investor funds, I interrupted. 3 properties acquired through fraud. Fake patents, shell companies. Should I continue? You're bluffing, he said, but his voice wavered. Am I? I pulled out my phone, playing one of his recorded conversations with Martin. Dorian's face went pale. You recorded me? No, Amber replied. You recorded you. I just found the files. He stood up suddenly, making Amber flinch. Lucille stepped forward, her presence a clear warning. Sit down, Dorian, Lucille said firmly. We're not done. Actually, we are. He straightened his jacket. Whatever amateur investigation you think you're conducting, you've got nothing. And if you did, you'd have already gone to the authorities. The authorities? I smiled. Why would we do that when the launch event is so close? Something flickered across his face. Fear, maybe, or recognition. The launch is private, he said carefully. Invitation only. Oh, we know. I pulled out an invitation. Martin was kind enough to share his. All the major investors will be there. Every single one. Martin? For the first time, real panic crossed his face. You talked to Martin? He sends his regards, I said. And he's very interested in your upcoming trip to the Caymans. Dorian moved fast, grabbing Amber's laptop and heading for the door. Lucille stepped in his way. That would be theft, she said calmly. And assault, given the state of Amber's wrist. Want to add those charges to everything else? He looked around wildly, like a trapped animal. What do you want? The launch continues as planned, I said. Every investor present, every promise made public. And if I refuse? Then I release everything now, Amber said. The recordings, the transfers, the fake patents, all of it. You'd go down too. He snarled at her. Your name's all over those documents. Maybe, she replied. But my children would know I finally stood up to you. My phone buzzed. A text from Susan. Martin's gathered the investors. They're all committed. Green light. Here's what's going to happen, I said, standing. You're going to leave this house. You're going to continue with the launch preparations. Everything will appear normal. And if I play along? He was calculating, I could see it in his eyes. Then you get one chance to do the right thing, I replied. At the launch, in front of everyone. He laughed, but it was hollow. You really think you can pull this off? You're nothing. Both of you. Just women who are convenient for my plans. That's where you're wrong, Amber said, standing beside me. We're not your victims anymore. We're your reckoning. This is still my house for the next 30 days, he replied, finishing his whiskey. You should start packing. I walked past him, grabbed my car keys, and headed for the door. He called after me. Don't do anything stupid, Kira. You've got nothing on me. I turned back, meeting his eyes. You know what's funny, Dorian? You're so convinced of your superiority that you never stop to consider one thing. And what's that? Dorian's face darkened. You have no idea what I'm capable of. Actually, Lucille cut in. I think they do. That's why I'm here. So think carefully about your next move. He straightened his tie, mask sliding back into place. Fine. Play your little game, but remember, I've been playing longer than you. As he walked out, Amber's hands were shaking. He'll try something. I know him. Count on it, I replied. That's exactly what we want. My phone buzzed again. Prince. Got it. Hidden account in Dubai. 10 million already transferred. Evidence downloaded. He's already moved the money, I told them. More than we thought. Lucille nodded. I'll tell Susan. We'll need to move fast after the launch. The kids, Amber said suddenly. They'll be home from school soon. Pack some bags, Lucille said. You'll stay at my place until this is over. As we helped Amber pack, I received one final text. From Dorian. You want to play hardball? Remember, I know all your weaknesses, every single one. I showed the message to Amber. He's right, she said. He knows how to hurt people. Yes, I replied. But he forgot something important. What's that? Sometimes the people you hurt learn to hurt back. The launch was 3 days away. Dorian thought he was still in control. Still the puppet master. He had no idea the strings were about to strangle him. The night before the launch, we gathered in Susan's office for our final preparation. The city lights twinkled outside her window like distant stars, oblivious to the storm we were about to unleash. Run it again, Susan said, spreading the timeline across her desk. Prince clicked through his presentation. 7 p.m. Doors open. 7:30. Dorian's keynote speech. 8 p.m. Technology demonstration. 8:30. Investment commitment ceremony. And the real timeline? Martin asked from his corner of the room. I stepped forward. 7:15. Prince activates the server mirror, streaming all hidden files to the investors' phones. 7:45. During the keynote, Amber triggers the financial records display. 8:15. Susan presents the legal documentation. What about his escape plan? Lucille asked, checking her weapon. Flight still booked for 3 a.m. Prince confirmed. But I've flagged his passport. He won't make it past security. My phone lit up with a message from Dorian. Last chance. Walk away now and you keep 30% of the house sale. He's getting desperate, I said, showing the group, making offers. Good, Martin replied. Desperate men make mistakes. Another message flashed across my screen. This one from an unknown number. My heart stopped when I opened it. A photo of me leaving my foster parents' house 15 years ago, bruised and broken. How did he find this? I whispered. Susan looked over my shoulder. He's trying to rattle you, show you he can hurt you. No, I said, my voice stronger than I felt. He's showing me he's scared. This is all he has left. Old wounds and empty threats. The door opened and Amber rushed in, pale-faced. We have a problem. He's changed the venue. What? Martin stood up. The investors are already en route to the hotel. He just sent out a mass email. The launch is now at the Maritime Museum. She held up her phone. Says it's for enhanced security measures. Prince was already typing. The museum's closed for renovations. How did he... He owns the construction company doing the work, I realized. It's his territory. He's trying to control the environment. We can't let him change the venue, Martin insisted. The investors won't... Yes, we can, Susan interrupted, because he just made his biggest mistake. The museum's security cameras, Lucille said, catching on. They're on a closed circuit. Prince grinned. Not anymore. Give me 20 minutes. He thinks he's boxing us in, I said, but he's actually giving us a better stage. My phone buzzed again. Another photo, this time of Amber's children at school. That bastard, Amber whispered, seeing the image. He's threatening our kids now? No, Lucille said firmly. He's proving how desperate he is. The kids are safe at my house with 2 officers watching them. Susan started repacking her briefcase. Everyone knows their positions? Once this starts, we can't stop. We all nodded. Years of pain, months of planning, all coming down to one night. Prince, you'll be in the security room, I confirmed. Martin with the investors, Lucille by the exits, Susan near the stage. Amber and I'm not that scared little foster kid anymore. I smiled, and something in my expression made his smirk falter. And you just made the biggest mistake of your life. I walked out, closing the door softly behind me. No drama, no screaming, no broken plates. Just the quiet click of a door and the end of one chapter of my life. In my car, I pulled out my phone and dialed my friend Susan's number. She picked up on the second ring. We'll be right in his line of sight, Amber finished, where he can see exactly what he's losing. My phone lit up one final time. Dorian, you have no idea what's waiting at the museum. Last warning. I typed back, neither do you. As we prepared to leave, Martin pulled me aside. Are you sure about this? Once we start, there's no going back. I thought about the house I'd lost, the years wasted, the lives Dorian had ruined. He took everything from me because he thought I was weak, because he thought my past made me vulnerable. And now? Now he gets to learn that everything he used against us, every scar, every struggle, every moment of pain, just made us stronger. Susan called everyone together for one final check. Phones synced, earpieces working, evidence secured? We all nodded. Remember, she continued, he's expecting a confrontation. What he's getting is an execution. By the time he realizes what's happening, it'll be too late. And if he has something planned at the museum? Amber asked. I squeezed her hand. Then we'll handle it, together. As we walked out into the night, I felt strangely calm. Dorian thought changing the venue would give him control. Instead, he'd given us exactly what we needed. A confined space, a captive audience, and nowhere for him to hide. In 3 hours, his perfect world would crumble. And this time, I wouldn't be the one walking away bruised and broken. That honor belonged to him. The Maritime Museum's grand hall echoed with polite conversation and clinking glasses. Investors in expensive suits mingled beneath the suspended skeleton of a blue whale, completely unaware of the drama about to unfold. He's by the podium, Prince's voice crackled in my earpiece. Looking nervous. Through the crowd, I spotted Dorian adjusting his tie repeatedly. A tell I'd learned meant he was stressed. Our eyes met across the room, and he gave me that familiar, condescending smile. All cameras active, Prince confirmed. Every angle covered. Martin moved through the crowd, shaking hands, ensuring each investor had received the mysterious files on their phones. Susan stood near the emergency exit, briefcase ready. Lucille's officers were positioned at every entrance. Ladies and gentlemen, Dorian's voice boomed through the speakers. If you'll please take your seats. I sat in the front row, Amber beside me. Dorian's smile faltered slightly at our proximity. Tonight, he continued, we're making history. Our proprietary technology will revolutionize. Excuse me. Martin stood up. Before you continue, I believe we all received some interesting documentation about this proprietary technology. Dorian's face tightened. I'm not sure what you're referring to. The patent applications, another investor called out. The ones that show the technology doesn't exist. Susan, it's Kira. Remember when you told me every lawyer needs a good revenge case to really make their career? I think I have just the thing for you. I'm listening, she said. How would you like to help me take down a man who's about to commit major investor fraud while screwing over 2 families? There was a pause, then the sound of papers shuffling. Come to my office, now. And Kira, bring everything you have. I started the car, feeling the familiar streets of our neighborhood fade into the rearview mirror. The life I'd built with Dorian had been a castle made of sand, but he'd forgotten something crucial about me. I'd spent my childhood learning how to survive, how to read people, how to protect myself. I'd buried those skills beneath 12 years of playing the perfect wife, but they were still there, waiting. Dorian thought he was dealing with a heartbroken wife. Instead, he'd awakened something far more dangerous, a woman with nothing left to lose and everything to reclaim. As I drove toward Susan's office, I felt a calm settle over me. He wanted to play games? Fine. But he was about to learn that some games end with more than just a broken heart. They end with justice. And I was just getting started. The room erupted in murmurs. Dorian raised his hands. There seems to be some confusion. No confusion, I said, standing up. Just truth. Finally. Security, Dorian barked. They're with us, Lucille called from the back, along with every exit. Prince's voice came through my earpiece. Displaying financial records now. The presentation screen behind Dorian suddenly filled with bank statements, transfer records, and offshore account details. The murmurs turned to gasps. Dorian scrambled. This is a hack. A disgruntled ex-wife's attempt to... These are your recordings. Amber stood, holding up her phone. Your voice, your promises, your lies. She pressed play. Dorian's voice filled the hall. Once we have their money, the technology doesn't matter. We'll be gone before they realize. Enough. Dorian lunged for Amber's phone, but I stepped between them. Touch her again, I said quietly. And assault charges will be the least of your worries. Susan stepped forward, her heels clicking on the marble floor. Mr. Young, would you like to press charges on behalf of the investors? Absolutely. Martin replied, standing. All of us would. Dorian backed away from the podium, eyes darting between exits. This is ridiculous. I can explain everything. Explain this. I projected a new image onto the screen. His one-way ticket to the Caymans. Running away with stolen money? That's not very revolutionary. You think you've won? He laughed, a manic edge to his voice. You think this changes anything? I still have the house. The money's already moved. You have nothing. Actually, Amber stepped forward. We have everything, including your private server. The one with the real business plans. The one showing how you plan to frame me for everything. The color drained from his face. Freeze the accounts. Martin commanded into his phone. All of them, now. Dorian reached into his jacket. Lucille's voice rang out. Don't even think about it. But he wasn't reaching for a weapon. He pulled out a remote detonator. You think I didn't plan for this? His thumb hovered over the button. One click and every computer in this building fries. All your evidence gone. Do it, I said calmly. He blinked. What? Press the button. Destroy everything. It won't matter. Why not? Because Prince has been broadcasting this entire event live to the SEC, FBI, and every major news outlet in the city. I smiled. Say hello to the cameras, darling. His eyes went wide as red recording lights blinked from every corner of the room. It's over, Dorian, Susan said, stepping forward with 2 FBI agents. The only question is whether you want to add terrorist threats to your charges. The remote clattered to the floor. As the agents moved in, Dorian locked eyes with me one last time. You couldn't have done this alone, he spat. You're nothing without me. You're right, I replied. I'm not alone. That's what you never understood. Real power isn't about controlling people. It's about bringing them together. As they led him away, the hall erupted in chaos. Investors demanding answers, reporters pushing in through the doors, cameras flashing. Amber grabbed my hand. We did it. Not quite, I said, pulling out my phone. One last message to send. Remember when you said I was second best? Turns out I was just getting started. The blue whale skeleton hung silently above us, witness to the fall of a man who thought he could swim with sharks forever. But tonight, the prey had become the hunters, and justice, like karma, had finally come full circle. The morning sun streamed through the windows of my new office as I unlocked the doors. The sign outside read, Phoenix House, Women's Financial and Legal Advocacy Center. Inside, the waiting room was already filling up. Morning, boss. Prince called from his IT station. 3 new clients today. Susan emerged from her office, coffee in hand. Make that 4. Just got a call from another Dorian victim. Apparently, he had quite a pattern going across state lines. Don't they all? I replied, sorting through the morning's mail. An orange envelope caught my eye. Prison stationery. Inside was a single sheet of paper. I underestimated you. D. I dropped it in the shredder without a second thought. Kira. Amber appeared in the doorway, 2 young children beside her. Ready for the group session? Our weekly support group had started with just us, but now filled the conference room. Women sharing stories, strategies, and strength. Today's topic, financial independence after betrayal. Mom, can I show Miss Kira my report card? Amber's daughter asked, bouncing on her toes. Straight A's, Amber said proudly, including math. Just like her mother. I smiled, remembering how Amber's IT skills had helped bring down Dorian's empire. Martin walked in, carrying a stack of papers. Latest settlement figures. The recovery team found another offshore account. How much this time? Susan asked. Enough to fund Phoenix House for another year, he replied, plus extra for the scholarship program. The scholarship was my favorite part, helping women return to school, start businesses, rebuild their lives. Every dollar recovered from Dorian's scheme now served to empower those he'd tried to destroy. Lucille arrived in her detective uniform. Got a minute, sis? There's someone you should meet. She led me to her car where a young woman sat, clutching her purse. This is Rachel. Her husband's running the same scam Dorian did. Different city, same playbook. Tell me everything, I said, sitting beside Rachel. We can help. As Rachel spoke, I saw my past self in her eyes. Scared, confused, but with that spark of determination. The same spark that had turned my pain into purpose. I don't have any money, Rachel whispered. He controls everything. That's why we're here, I replied. You're not alone anymore. Back inside, the support group was starting. Women of all ages filled the chairs, some with children, all with stories. Amber stood at the front, explaining financial security basics. First rule, she said. Your money is your power. Never let anyone tell you different. My phone buzzed. A message from the realtor. Offer accepted on the building next door. Ready to expand? I looked around at our crowded office. What had started as revenge had grown into something bigger. Something healing. Ms. Kira? One of our regulars approached. I just got my first business loan. Opening my own bakery next month. That's wonderful, Maria. I never thought I'd stand on my own again, she said, tears in her eyes. But you showed me how. Susan appeared with more coffee. Ready to tell them about the new program? I nodded, addressing the room. Thanks to our latest recovery, we're launching a housing initiative. Emergency apartments for women leaving dangerous situations. No questions asked, no strings attached. The room erupted in applause. In the back, I saw Lucille wiping her eyes. Who would have thought? Susan whispered. Your house getting stolen would lead to this? Sometimes, I replied. You have to lose everything to find your true purpose, Prince called out from his desk. Breaking news, Dorian's appeal was denied. He's serving the full 20 years. More applause, but I barely heard it. I was watching Rachel, sitting straighter now, taking notes as Amber explained financial documentation. Another phoenix rising. My phone buzzed again, this time a text from Martin. Investors want to double the funding. They're calling Phoenix House the future of women's advocacy. I typed back, it's not about the money anymore. It's about the mission. Looking around the room, at the women supporting each other, at the children doing homework, at my team working tirelessly, I finally understood. Dorian hadn't destroyed my life. He'd helped me find my calling. Ready for the next client? Susan asked. I picked up my notebook and smiled. Always ready. Let's help her fly. Because that's what phoenixes do. We rise, we soar, and most importantly, we help others spread their wings. The revenge was sweet, but the legacy? That was transformative.